Greetings, Bloodkins! It's time for the Abysscraft Gloryfinder deck showcase. Now, just like all the other Gloryfinder decks, few notes. 1. We are locking it to the class itself and neutrals. And 2. There are a couple of banned cards. Most notably, in Abysscraft, we've banned Azazel for a variety of reasons, but basically it's just not a fun card to play against. It's especially obnoxious, and even without it, Abysscraft is actually quite an obnoxious class on its own. But yeah, that's banned. Also Odin, Olivia, and Lyriel. So other than those four cards, everything is fair game. So let's start off with the Glory card itself, the one you will take about 90% of the time, that being Spawn of the Abyss. Now this card was printed specifically for Gloryfinder and is, well, disgustingly powerful. Spawn of the Abyss is a 6 play.56, which reads: at the start of your end phase, give your leader +2, draw a card. Each opponent discards a card and buries a follower. So 4 effects in one, all good. But that's not all. If you evolve for 2, the evil version changes it to gain 4 health, draw 2 cards, each opponent discards 2 cards, and buries 2 followers. This is, I think, undisputably the most powerful Gloryfinder card printed. It's pretty insane, the card advantage. So first, you draw 2, then you discard 6 opponent cards, and potentially they bury 6 followers. This is an absolutely insane card, to the point where you don't even care that you will attract a lot of aggro. Right? If you put it as your glory card and everyone knows you have it, you're going to attract a lot of aggro on the table. However, it's so powerful that you really don't even care. Can you imagine a environment where both this and Azazel is legal? That's just, it's too much for one class. Not to mention, discard is probably the most hated mechanic in all card games in general. I can't really state just how powerful this card is. In fact, in some respects, the entire deck is centered around this card. Playing it as early as possible, reviving it, so on and so forth. There's only one other card you could maybe consider, and the only reason you would consider any other card as a glory card is just to not draw as much aggro to yourself in the early game. Because believe you me, when other people are playing against Abyss and they see this, they are going to target you #1 priority. So that's Spawn of the Abyss, and we're going to go through pretty much everything that is built around this card. In particular, we have 3 main packages in the deck, those being a discard package, a bury and revive package, and then the general good stuff, good card package. So let's start off with the discard package. Spawn of the Abyss itself is part of the discard package because you make everyone discard 2. In fact, it's the most powerful discard card of the lot. But, you know, the entire card itself is just broken. Anyway, we'll be referring to it as we go along. We'll just move that there and we will begin. So, the face of discard cards is of course Rulnyai. How do you say that? Rulnyai. Omen of Silence. This has Fanfare Necrocharge 10 to the enemy follow that costs 3 or less and destroy it. Also a passive effect. While this card is on your field, any spell an opponent plays costs 1 more. Now, these two effects for 1, Necrocharge 10 is relatively easy to get off in this deck. We do have many cards focusing on Bury, which charges Necrocharge. So, Fanfare is not too powerful of an effect, but it can still come in handy. The passive as well, kind of same thing. It's not too powerful of an effect. It can really stuff up some plays. For example, having a 2 play point spell costs 3. However, in Gloryfinder you start off with 3 and go up to 10. So it's a lot, you're already ramped a little bit, so it's not as powerful as, let's say, a turn 3 tempo play on Constructed. But the reason you want to run this is the Evo. So when you Evo, on Evolve, each opponent discards a random card. So random is even more powerful than just plain discard because, hey, if you make them discard, they'll just choose the worst 2 cards in their hand. If you make them discard a random card, well, that can potentially hit one of their big plays. So this can come out even on turn 1 with an Evo point, but usually on turn 4 if you draw it. And what you'll find is that if you're lucky, there is a line where every single turn, up until and including the Spawn of Abyss turn, you can make opponents discard cards. So honestly, like, everyone hates playing against this deck. It's so obnoxious because they just discard everything. You end up with 1, maybe 2 cards in hand. You end up having to top deck every single turn when this deck is high rolling. It's so obnoxious. So be prepared to be focused down when you play this deck. However, you have a lot of tools to protect yourself. There's healing, there's a little bit of defense, there's destruction effects. But actually, discard is your main defensive tool, right? You just stop them from playing cards. Even against classes which like having cards in the cemetery, for example Rune, discarding is still quite disruptive because Rune only wants to discard its spells. And actually, Rune kind of wants the effect of the spell, then discard it. So even against Rune, this can be quite destructive. Against Forest, who wants a full hand, this is almost a hard counter. Haven struggles a bit with it as well, but they tend to be a control deck, so it's not so much that you discard their win cons, it's just that you discard their removal. I guess one weakness of the discard package is that it's not particularly aggressive, it's more of a disruptive strategy. So you discard other people's cards, but you're not putting a lot of pressure yourself. Cool, but with Rulnai, of course, we run his 2 signature cards, those being Thundering Roar, a 2 play point spell. Choose one of the following: Necrocharge 10, which is again not hard. Choose up to 2 instead. 1. Each opponent discards a random card. Again, that random card. 2. Select an enemy follow on the field, deal it 3 damage. That's whatever. You just, even if you don't have Necrocharge 10, you just play it raw to have everyone discard a card. A random card. Just think about the card advantage. You use 1 to get rid of 3, 1 from each opponent. It's just all these discard all cards are really insane value. We also run the other spell, the forecast spell. So the enemy fall on the field, destroy its controller, discards a random card. Again, a random discard effect. Very annoying, very powerful, with a removal on top of it. So again, as we'll see through the discard package, they are more disruptive than aggressive. You're not putting pressure, you're just making sure your opponents can't put on pressure later. Next we have Crazed Executioner. Crazed Executioner is a 3 play point 1 evolve. On evolve, deal 2 damage to your leader, which is literally nothing in Gloryfinder. Does not matter at all, 2 damage. Select an opponent, they reveal their hand, and you discard one of them. This is an absolutely broken effect. With a low cost of 3 plus evo plus 2 health, you get to discard the strongest card of a player. You select it as well, and you gain full hand information. This is just such a disruptive card, especially in Gloryfinder, where you only run 1 copy of every card. So you get rid of their win con, it's over for them. If you can follow up with one or two discards as well after or before this, basically that opponent is out of the game. It's to the point where people hate seeing this so much, to the point where they've like it's like, oh man, we gotta ban some of these discard cards. They're just too much. But haven't come to that decision yet. I think personally it's interesting to have a kind of metagame where different strategies like discard are viable. So we'll see. But there might come a critical point in the future with more booster sets that there's just too much discard in the game, to the point where you can build maybe half your deck fully around it and strangle every single other deck, no matter what their strategy is. As of right now, the discard package is just a small but significant portion of the deck. They're all very powerful. However, you're not guaranteed to, let's say, see 2 or 3 of them per game, because there's only like about less than 10 cards in total for this little package. Moving on, we have a Gloryfinder exclusive card. It's Milnard Dark Fiend. Fanfare: each opponent with at least 7 cards in hand discards 3 cards. That is quite powerful. However, it doesn't go off that often. Perhaps the most often it goes off on is Haven or Forest, both of which this card is pretty much a hard counter to, especially Forest. But in general, people have like 4 to 7 cards in hand, so you're not too often going to get this fanfare. Also, you're not going to very often get the evolve effect, because you can only evolve if there are 2 cards or less in your hand. Because of the way this deck is centered around Spawn of the Abyss, which draws you 1 or 2 cards at the end of the turn, depending on if it's evolved or not, you actually don't really run out of cards in hand. You don't really get low. And so the evo is very rarely seen. In fact, I think I've only seen the evo be pulled off once in all the games. If you do manage to evo though, you get a decent effect. It's Storm, 5 attack Storm, with strike, draw 2 cards or recover 3 play points. If you are down in the game, if you are low on resources and you draw this can potentially swing things back. You can stabilize, you can pressure, you get to draw 2 and you recover the 3 play points you spent to play the card itself. So it's a powerful effect. However, it is decently hard to be able to evolve it. Next we have Nice Nature, an Umumusume card. Fanfare, select the enemy follower, give it -1/-1. That's alright, it's not bad, but the main reason we play it is the last words, each opponent discards a card. What else is there to say? A 3/3/3 is a good stat line. The -1/-1 can help a lot in trades, and the last word discard is just a bonus on top. Even if you can't get the fanfare off, it doesn't matter. You just play it raw. Last words is just, no one really wants to remove it, especially if they have like cards that they do not want to discard. And so you might even be able to get 2 attacks off with it, depending on the state of the game. Nice Nature. This is definitely not a nice effect though. The final discard card in the synergy is not actually a discard card. It's Servant of Silence, which is a supporting card. So, whenever an opponent discards a card, deal 2 damage to them, and bury the top 2 cards of your deck. In this case, burying means to put them into the graveyard, just straight like that. You're not really worried about the 2 damage to the leader. You mainly play this as bury synergy because you want to fill up your cemetery with 10 and then 20 cards as fast as possible to turn on all your necro charge effects. So this can help you get there. It's not that powerful, but it can speed it up maybe 1 or 2 turns, getting to necrocharge 10 or 20. It can speed it up, depending on if you actually draw your other discard cards. Just on its own though, it's a vanilla 2/2/3, it's not that impactful. I feel like this is one of the cards you could consider switching out once there are more cards in the pool. Carrying on from the bury effect, we're actually going to go on to the next package. So that's the last card of the discard package. We're now going to go on to the bury package. More specifically, the bury and then revive package. So, Orb of Destruction. This is the first one we'll talk about. This is the Gloryfinder card for bury synergy. This is also the card I would recommend as your glory card if you don't want to run Spawn of the Abyss and get targeted the entire game. Orb of Desecration reads, at the start of your end phase, bury the top card of your deck. So you just mill 1 card from your deck every turn. Then, if there are 20 cards in your cemetery, you can tap for 2 to revive any card in your cemetery. So, basically the idea is, you mill everything to turn on your necro charge, then during that mill you've probably discarded some good cards. No matter though, you can revive it for just 2 play points, get a very powerful effect on the field. Let's say an 8, 9, 10 drop, or you can even revive this if it's been played and then discarded. Now, from my time running this, I've found that it's not actually particularly good at milling. You start at 3, right? 3 play points, then you have, if you play this turn 1, you have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 play points. Once you hit 10, this card has buried 8, which is not bad. However, with all the other bury cards in this deck, you can actually get yourself to necrocharge 20 by turn 8 or 9. Assuming you high roll a little bit. And even then, the main thing to do is get yourself to Necrocharge 10 first, so you can start applying some pressure. And that is extremely easy if you draw like, let's say 2 or 3 bury cards. And bury cards are a decent part of the deck, a decent amount of the deck. So it's not that difficult. That's why I don't particularly enjoy running this personally as my glory card, because I don't think it's that impactful. If you draw it from the deck, it's also fine. It's also a fine card to have in your hand. It's a 2 play point revive. You don't even need to show it. You don't even need to turbocharge your Necro. You can just play normally and then revive something big. It really depends on your playstyle. Do you want to turbocharge Necro? Or do you want to just naturally get up to 20 and then revive? That's going to be up to you. I think we'll place it here as well, just in case we need to talk about it. And we'll move on to the next bury card. It's Grave Desecration. Fanfare, put the top 2 cards of your deck into your cemetery. That's a very powerful Necro charge. And then tap for 2, put this card into the cemetery and revive a departed follower. Select a departed follower and add it to your hand, not on the field. So we do run some good departed followers. I can't name them off the top of my head, but maybe I'll put like a little graphic on the screen here highlighting all the departed followers. Basically, you play this for 2 reasons. 1, it's a 1 play point bury 2, which is extremely efficient. And 2, the departed follower revival can start causing a chain loop. Now, we'll talk about that when we get to the specific cards, but just know that the revival and bury effects here, you can start looping very, very powerful cards over and over again. We'll actually leave that up there as well, and we'll move on. Next is Spartoy Sergeant. Fanfare, bury the top 2 cards of your deck. It's a 2/2/2 bury 2. Not as good as this, but you do get the body. Not much else to say here, it's just a generically good bury card. Next we have Spectre. 2/2/1 Bane. Give your leader -2. It's, it doesn't matter too much, -2, but it is a little bit annoying, I feel, for a card such as this. Give it Rush, and put the top card of your deck into your cemetery. So for the cost of 2 play points and 2 life, you bury 1 card and you get a Rush Bane, so 1 removal. In terms of power level, I feel like it's not the strongest. If it did not have the -2 health, I would feel a bit better running it. As it stands right now, it's still okay, but I feel like at some point it's going to get replaced with a more powerful card. It's not bad though. A 2 play point removal, it's not bad. It removes anything, right? Because it's Bane. So it's decent. Next we have, similar to Spartoy Sergeant, it's Seeking the Pearl. So, last words, bury 2. So instead of fanfare, it's last words for this card. However, one advantage is that because it's an Umumusume follower, you can race it, giving it Rush. And you can immediately swing it in, trade, and then get that bury 2. Other than that though, it's just a solid play on a board. Right? All the last words abilities, all cards with last word, are quite good into, let's say, an empty board. Right? You don't need to wait for certain things of the fanfare. you just slam it down, and then it's the onus is on the opponent to deal with it, or not. Next, the 2 play point removal spell, Undying Resentment. This is just a staple card in Abyss. Quick, which is awesome. 2 play point quick. Select an enemy follow on the field, deal it 3 damage, and bury the top card of your deck. So, just a generic standard effect. 2 play point 3 damage is pretty standard across all classes. And you get the extra bury, and it's a quick. Hey, what else? What more could you ask for? Next we have Bone Chimera. This has fanfare, bury 3 cards from the top of your deck. Very, very accelerated bury. Necrocharge 7 as well, it gains Rush and Bane. One cool thing you can do with this card is just play it, right? You get the bury. If you don't have 7, don't attack with it next turn, right? Until you have 7, it's just a 1/1. If it survives until your next turn, do you really care about doing 1 damage to an opponent? No. And if you do attack, it's gonna get removed just so easily. At least if it's reserved, you need to hit it with like a spell or something. So it's best just to never attack with this until you have Necrocharge 7. For example, it's a good turn 1 play. Turn 1, you have 3 play points, you just immediately slam it down, you've buried 3, and you just don't attack with it. Next turn, you wait. Next turn, you wait. Next turn, finally you have 7, you can swing it in as a removal. That's one thing I quite like about this card, is, it's a silent killer. Also, it's unexpected. If opponents are tracking your Necrocharge, and you have, let's say, 7, all of a sudden you can play this, get the Necrocharge 10, activate a strong effect. Same with if you're at 17, for stuff like Orb of Desecration. Next, now the Umumusme card, Fine Motion. On race, give it +1/+1, give your leader +2, and bury 2. So, I mean, what else is there to say? Just 3 good effects for the low cost of 3. Because race doesn't cost 1, it just costs a carrot in the deck. So it's a 3 play point 4/4, that's already decent stats. Plus you heal 2, plus you bury 2. This is just, like, it's such a strong card actually. I'm sure constructed bury decks run 3 copies of this as well. It's just, I mean, what else to say? It's just everything you want in a card. Next, a Gloryfinder exclusive card, Spectral Cascade. 3 play point quick, bury the top 5 cards of your deck and draw a card. Very powerful. Charges Necrocharge very quickly. Bit too powerful for a constructed deck, I would say. That's why it's Gloryfinder only. Again, it's just exactly what you want in a card. So you turbocharge the Necro, and you get a draw for just 3. You can really, if you have this and you have a Necrocharge card in your hand, you're at 15, it's just so good. Actually, you can be at 14, right? Because this card discards itself. So if you're at 14 Necrocharge and you play this, all of a sudden you can immediately play stuff like Orb of Desecration. So yeah, very, very nice. Kind of creepy art as well. I kind of like it. There's just arms coming out of his mouth. Next, we have a more aggressive bury card. It's Emeralda, Demonic Officer. Fanfare, select the enemy follower that costs 5 or less, destroy it. So just a really good removal fanfare. Also bury 2, and so that leads into the strategy as well. Its base form is also Storm. So 5 play point, 4 attack Storm, and then Evo 1, you gain another attack for the Storm, but you also gain Drain. And also, you gain Strike, bury another 2 cards from the top of your deck. Again, this card just has everything you want in a Bury Revival Abysscraft strategy. No wonder it is Gloryfinder exclusive, but I mean, just think about it, right? 5 attack Storm Drain for the low cost of 5 plus 1 Evo, and then you bury 4. It's just, again, it's just everything you would want in a card. Lovely. Now the second half of the bury strategy is of course the revive strategy. And we start off with probably the best of them all, Hell's Unleasher. So it's a 2 play point tap. Bury this card, select the follower that costs 3 or more in your cemetery, add it to your hand. What follower are you going to use with this effect? Spoiler alert, it's Spawn of the Abyss. So here's the general play pattern, right? What happens is on turn 7 or turn 8, if you don't have an Evo point, you play Spawn of the Abyss and evolve it. Then it gets removed. Then you play a Hell's Unleasher, tap it immediately to bring back Spawn of Abyss into your hand, and you could probably play it next turn, right? Because when you play it, you have 7 or 8. This is 6 plus 2 is 8. So you just immediately play it on your next turn. Get another discard, another draw, another bury, some more health. You don't even care that you can't evolve it again. Just the base card itself, discard 1, draw 1, bury 1, heal 2, is already so powerful, right? So then you get it a second time. Then it gets removed. Then you play something like Necro Carnival. Choose one of the following. Necrocharge, choose 2. Select a follower that costs 2 play points or less. Put it on your field. The second one is summon 2 ghost tokens. That doesn't really matter. It's nice to have 2, but doesn't really matter. You'd play it just for the revive 2. Right, so this was your turn 7 play. This was your turn 8 play. Your turn 9 play is 3. And then summons this. And then 9. So that's 3 turns in a row you've summoned Spawn of the Abyss, which is 5 discards, 5 draws, 5 buries each, and 8 health. Absolutely disgusting combo, and you can just keep reviving it. It's so obnoxious, actually. What else can you use? Orb of Desecration to revive it. This one is just Departed. Okay, so there are a couple of Departed followers, which we'll get to very, very soon. But we already have a lot of lines to revive Spawn of the Abyss. Let's go into the next one. Apostle of Lust. Tap. Give your leader -1. Select a follower that costs 2 play points or less. Hint, hint. From your cemetery and put it on your field. So you can immediately again tap it to revive. Or to add it to your hand and then play. And it has also a little passive whenever another demon follower is put on your field. Hint, hint. This is a demon. You gain 1. So you don't even lose health from the effect. You just play it, tap it, get this, tap it, put this in your hand. Simply It just keeps happening. What else can revive your Spawn of the Abyss? Well, Demonic Storm, 5 play point, Necrocharge 20, so you do have to wait for a bit. Summon a demon follower from your cemetery. Hint hint, this is a demon. And also deal damage equal to its attack to each enemy follower on the field. So that's a 5, it's a 5 damage AoE. If you don't have Necrocharge, you just do the AoE. But you pretty much always want to use it with the Necrocharge 20. Only in an emergency, right? You just use it for the board clear effect. So another revival. What else do we have? Well, Undead King. What can you do with Undead King? Select 2 followers in your cemetery, add them to your hand. Okay, you can add this to your hand. You can add this to your hand. You can add Apostle of Lust, which adds this to your hand. If you bring back Hell's Unleasher, you could do this, add this, then you play this again to add these two. Once these are both discarded, add these two, and then you play this to return Undead King to your hand, and then you play this again. And I'm gonna confuse myself, but basically it can become an infinite loop. You just infinitely loop these few cards and always get back Spawn of the Abyss. It's well, I mean, what do you do against it? You have to, let's say, banish or bottom deck one of these 2 cards, preferably Spawn of the Abyss, and that's the reason why this kind of combo is not banned, because there is some counterplay. You can banish, you can bounce, not bounce, you can bottom deck, like Forest can bottom deck. So it's not unbeatable, and you do have to draw these specific cards, but once it gets going, it's very hard to stop. Next card, another revival, Death's Breath. Select a follower that costs 8 or less in your cemetery, summon it and give it ward. Okay, that's just another copy of Spawn of the Abyss. What else do we have? Parade Raven. Fanfare, put another follower from your field into its owner's cemetery. Could just be a ghost or something, doesn't really matter. Select a follower that costs 5 play points or less in your cemetery. Hint hint, hint hint. Put it onto your field. So you play this, discard 1, you get back Apostle of Lust, you tap Apostle of Lust to get back Hell's Unleasher, you tap Hell's Unleasher to get back Undead King. Next turn you can Undead King to bring back Spawn of the Abyss and Hell's Unleasher. You play Spawn of the Abyss, it gets discarded, you play Hell's Unleasher to bring back Undead King. You play Undead King to bring back Hell's Unleasher and Spawn of the Abyss, and anyway, you get the idea. You get the idea. Oh, one last one. Demon Lord Ektar. Fanfare Necrocharge 10. Select up to 2 Bloodcraft followers that cost 2 or less from your cemetery and summon them. Then it has some other effects which aren't really that important. Give it +1/+1. Necrocharge 20 is +3/+3 instead. And also when it's on the field, other followers have rush, but you don't really care about that. All you care about is reviving Hell's Unleasher again. That being said, even if you're not doing this loop in the game, we still have in the other half of the deck some good 2 play point cost followers, just to fill your board and have a bit of tempo. Right? So that's the Bury and Revive package. As you can see, it's Well, it's definitely something. I'll say that. It's not even that hard to pull off. It's reasonably consistent as well, because you always have the Spawn of the Abyss, and even if you don't draw Hell's Unleasher, which is probably the main culprit in all this, you still have a lot of ways to keep recurring it. So, very fun, I must say. It's a very fun kind of combo, that kind of recursion. So, an interesting deck archetype. However, perhaps along with the discard archetype, it does get a bit obnoxious, but hey, that is what it is. To cap off the revival archetype though, is a very important card. The one problem with reviving followers is that you can't evolve them again. You're only allowed one copy of each evolve card in your evolve deck as well. So, of course, the solution is to revive the evolve cards. In this case, not revive. You turn them back face down with Archangel Reina. A lot of the times, this will actually become free or close to free, because you recover play points equal to the number of face-up evolve followers you turn face down. If you have 4, it becomes free. Or let's say 5, because the evo is 1, but depends if you use an evo point. Basically, if you have Spawn of the Abyss and you evolve it twice, well, that's a big problem. That's a big problem. It's just such a big swing that it's pretty hard to deal with. Anyway, it's a nice tech card. It comes up sometimes, but you're not too bothered if you can't get it off, right? It's a snowball card, let's say. Excellent. Let's move on to the main deck, the main half of the deck. Basically, the main half of the deck is just filled with good cards, right? Good staple cards. They're not really part of any bigger grand strategy. They're just there to make the deck good, you could say. Starting off with Cursebrand Vampire, a Gloryfinder exclusive card. Fanfare, select an enemy follower on the field, deal it 2 damage. Or Necrocharge 10, deal it 5. And Necrocharge 20, deal 3 damage to the leader. So, it's just a good card, right? It's not overpowered, it's not underpowered, it's just a good card. A 1 play point 5 damage removal that also deals 3 to the face. You know, it's not going to swing the game massively, but it's just a good card. It's a removal and a bit of face damage for only 1 play point. Not bad. Not bad at all. Next we have an Amulet Dire Bond. This is basically an insight, so Fanfare, deal 1 damage to your leader, draw a card. Or tap 2, deal 1 damage to your leader and draw a card also. So it's either it's a 3 play point, draw 2 essentially. And you deal damage to your leader twice. Abysscraft does like dealing damage to its leader to activate Sanguine. However, this deck does not run Sanguine. Sanguine is a powerful effect, but from what I thought building this deck was that there just wasn't enough support and the payoff wasn't powerful enough to run Sanguine. To add a discard, a Bury Revival, and a Sanguine package is probably too much. So, unfortunately, I did cut the Sanguine package in my build. However, that's not to say it's terrible. It's okay, but maybe not as powerful as the rest. Even without the Sanguine package too, though, this is a nice card, right? You draw 2, you always love draw. Next we have the heart and soul of Shadowcraft, now Abysscraft, soul conversion. Select the following field, destroy it, draw 2. I mean, hey, if you've played Shadow, you know you attack with the ghost and then you sack it, or you put a skeleton inside a skeleton and sack it to summon a skeleton. It's just a classic card, and draw 2 as well, just excellent. Just excellent. And you need a good bit of draw in the deck, because you actually, even though you're discarding other players' cards, you actually don't gain cards in your hand unless you have specific draw cards, right? Because you play one each turn, and so it's not like you'll have a full hand that often, unless you are recurring Spawn of the Abyss, though. We'll leave that up there again. So having a handful of good draw cards, draw 2 cards, is important to make sure you don't run out of resources, which is possible. If you don't high roll, you can end up being very far behind with a low hand size and just top decking every turn praying for a draw. Next we have an absolutely broken card. It's so broken, it's so good. Relinquish Reason, 1 Playpoint Spell Gloryfinder exclusive. What does this do? Quick. Select an enemy follower on the field that is attacking your leader. Change its attack target to any other leader or follower on the field. This just hard counters some classes. You have a sword that's swinging into you for 10 damage? Nope, it's swinging into itself for 10 damage. Like, just drawing this card can win you the game against a lot of other classes. Dragon, sword, that's about well, dragon and sword are the main ones. For us, Haven, let's say Haven is attacking you with Aegis. Wait, you can't select Aegis because it's got aura. But you get the idea, right? This can auto-win you the game, especially when people aren't expecting it. And it's very easy to get off. It's not like you have to float a lot of play points. It's very often that people float 1 or 2 at the end of their turns. So, you know, you can't really tell if someone has it, if you have it. This should have been like 2 or 3 cost. It's just so powerful. Not only that, but instead of swinging it back to the attacker, you can direct it to another person, possibly KO them. The possibilities are endless with this. It's just such a good card. Next one. We're getting into the decently good 2-drops now. Mostly to synergize with Icta. There is Trick Dullahan. Fanfare, put a ghost in your EX area. Necrocharge 10, put 3. So, Necrocharge 10, as we said before, very easy to get. And you get 3 ghosts, which is 3 storm damage. Although probably you want to use them for, let's say, stuff like soul conversion, right? To draw 2 cards. It's not a bad card to revive as well, because you get 3 more ghosts. And just a very solid play. The ghosts are useful for trading mostly, I would say. Not so much for the face damage, although that can come in handy. Next we have another ghost synergy. It's Mischievous Zombie. Fanfare, discard a card, summon a ghost. If you discarded a departed card, draw a card. There is a decent amount of departed cards in the deck. Some even you do want to discard. For example, Mordecai. Well, spoiler alert, Mordecai is in the deck, but you don't want to play it every game. You only want to play Mordecai when the time is right. And so often you can just discard it if you're not planning on playing it. So the discard is often, you can reasonably often get it out, and you actually reasonably often gain an advantage from discarding, let's say, a useless card and drawing a card. Plus, it's 1 extra card for Necrocharge. Now what does the Evolve do? It's Evolve 2, which is a little expensive. But the Evolve 2 is, say the ghost on your field, give it Bane. So a 2 play point removal. Not bad, not the best. I'd say the Evo is just a bonus. You mainly play it just for the ghost and the discard draw card. Cool. Next one is Lesser Mummy, Fanfare 10, Necrocharge 10, give it Storm. Evil for 1, summon a ghosts. So, it's actually not very strong, right? What is it? It's 4 damage Storm if you evolve. It's okay, but it's not the strongest. If you like, you could replace it. However, I would say it's not, you can keep it, right? It's a Departed card. The deck does have Departed synergy. And so, the sole reason it's still quite good is because it's a Departed trait. If it wasn't Departed trait, I would very much consider cutting it. However, 4 Storm it's not nothing. It's decently good. Next, Demonium Punk Devil. 2 play point 2/3 ward. You can use the effect, give your leader -2, give this follower Bane. This effect can be activated once per turn. And last words, heal 2. For this card, giving it Bane is not too big of a deal, right? You mainly play it for the ward, which this class does not have too much of, and the heal 2 can be quite influential. The reason being, if you are down on the ropes, if you are being targeted very aggressively, heal 2 doesn't matter too much, but you can keep reviving it. Heal 2, heal 2, heal 2, heal 2. That can make the difference. Of course, in that case, you maybe don't want to use the effect -2 to gain Bane. However, it can come in handy. Why I would suggest not doing the -2 gain Bane is because it only has 3 health, so it's relatively easy to get rid of with a spell. That being said, though, it's just a generally good generic card. You play for 2, you ward it so that you block 1 attack, and then you heal 2. Sometimes the Bane can come in handy. For instance, let's say it actually survives until next turn. Then you gain Bane, and then you run into a big guy as removal. So yeah, just a generally good card. The main reason it's good though is because you can revive it and heal 2 every time. Next card, the classic Pure-Hearted Singer. Fanfare and last words, draw a card. Again, you can revive this if you want to, although I don't think I've ever had a game where this has been revived. But yeah, you need draw 2 cards. It's very easy with this deck to get down to 3 or 4 and stay there. If you don't high roll. If you do high roll, you'll have a full hand the whole game. If you don't high roll by a recurring spawn, then you get stuck around 4, in my experience. Next, not a particularly powerful card. It's Wardrobe Raider. So this is the classic base Shadowcraft card. Was that Shadow? I think it was. Yep, so it's a 3/3/3. The main reason I run this is because it has 0 evil. The 0 evil is on evolve, destroy 1 follower you own, and then 1 follower an opponent owns. Now, this is okay if you have like a ghost or something, but I think a lot of the times you would just bury itself. Essentially, it's a 3 play point removal spell that uses up your evo for the turn. Even though it's evo 0, which is fine, it's using up your evo for the turn is not actually the best. For this reason, even up until Omen of the 10 booster packs, I think there is something you can replace this with. In my opinion, I should have already cut this card. It's not very good. It uses your evo for the turn, which can be significant. Like, you would just, if there was a 3 play point removal spell, which I can't remember off the top of my head if there is, up until Omen of the 10. But you should just replace it with that spell in case. So, yeah, it's not a good card. I should have already replaced it, but hey, I just it's just slipped through the cracks until now. Next, we have Maruzensky and the Evolve version. We have the full art for these. I actually just printed them out. Do all Umamusume cards have full art? I can't remember. Yeah. But anyway, a lovely card. The character is really cool. She seems like the type of character to be quite popular. Is that true? I don't know Umamusume enough to know that, but I don't know. She gives me the impression that she is quite a popular character. Anyway, 3 play point 3/3. Evo for 1 becomes a 4/4. The base fanfare is Necrocharge 10. Select the enemy following the field, give it -4/-4, so it's pretty much a removal. Evo for 1, select the enemy following the field, give it -2/-2. Maybe one other removal, and then you can swing in with Rush. It's a potentially a 3/1. However, I must say, it hasn't been as good as I thought it would be in real games. Here's the reason why. You really like playing this in the early game to deal with these small followers. The 3, 4, 5, and the 2 and the 1 cost followers that come out on turns 3, 4, 5. Very effective for dealing with those followers. However, once you start seeing 6, 7, 8, 9 cost followers, then the -6/-6 is not so impactful. And the 4 attack is also, it's okay, but it's not so impactful. Now here's the problem. It's hard to play it early game because you don't have Necrocharge 10 that early. You can get it if you're lucky around turn 6 or 7 play points, but still, like, you'd rather play this card on turn 3, 4, 5. So, rather disappointingly, I feel underwhelmed with this in the deck. Now, it's not bad, it is good, but it's not great. My opinion is it's still probably good enough to stay in the deck for probably 2 or 3 more expansions, is my guess. However, eventually I do think they will print a card that can replace this in this Gloryfinder deck. Next we have also a bad card. It's funny, all the 3 drops in this deck are bad. I really need to rethink the 3 drops here. But anyway, it's Caster. Caster 3/3/4, last words, pay 2. Put this follower onto its opponent's field. So a mini Mordecai, let's say. I can't remember a single time where I've used the last words, to be honest. even though you start ramped up to 3 play points, it's like, one, you often don't float play points with Abysscraft because you want to, get everything out, use as mana as efficiently as possible. 2, it's like, is it even worth paying 2 for a 3/4 late into the game? Like, not really. It doesn't have rush either. It's like, you're just paying for stats. There's no effect on it. So, I should have already replaced this card. It's not good. I was basically just trying it out to see how it feels, but yeah, it feels bad. You should replace this. I should have replaced this already, and you should replace it also as soon as possible. Next is a card which is not bad. It's fan favorite Cerberus. There she is. Just a great generic card. Fanfare, put a Mimi or Coco into your EX. Necrocharge 10, put both. If you evo for 2, you put a Mimi and a Coco into your EX area. So you're guaranteed 3. If you have Necrocharge 10, you have 4. But it doesn't really matter if you get the 4th one. Even if you don't have Necrocharge 10, this is still a good play. A turn 5 or 6 play, because the evo is 2. Mimi and Coco are just good cards. They're 0 play point, deal 2 damage, so 0 play point removal. In this case, up to 4 damage or removal. Or there's 0 play point gain to attack. Or how I like to think of it is 0 play point for storm. Because you pretty much always want to put it on a character that is attacking face. Not much else to say. Everyone loves Cerberus. She's such an iconic card. Fan favorite. They've retrained Cerberus many times. I think there's like 3 or 4 copies of Cerberus in the digital game. And, well, there should be more. Next, we have Soul Dealer. Soul Dealer is a 4 play point ward, 6/5, so good stats for the cost. However, on Fanfare, deal 3 damage to your leader. Again, Gloryfinder, you start with 30, so it's not that bad. It's not as bad as, let's say, a 1v1 where you only start with 20. So it's decent. But you don't want to just play it for the stats. You do want to evolve it, which costs 2. So it's more like a turn 6 play. Into the Evo, select an enemy following the field, destroy it, give this leader plus X. X equals the selected follower's attack. So, how this card plays. You probably do not want to turbo it out with an Evo point. You do not want to play it on turn 5. This is a late game card. Late game, one of the opponents has like a 6 or 7 plus follow on the field. You play for 4, evolve for 2, and then the fanfare doesn't matter. That's how you play this card. It becomes a 6 play point, remove and heal 3. Or heal up to 5 or 6. Right, because 6 attack minus 3 is 3 health gain. Oops. My bad. Just a good generic card. Basically, it's kind of like one of those big statted cards which removes something else. Which is decent, right? It's one of those cards you can just slam onto an empty board to remove and pose a threat itself. So you basically trade 1 for 1 with a small health advantage. And those types of cards are just generically good in Gloryfinder. Alright? They have to deal with it. And for something like a 7/6, if they trade 1 for 1, you're happy because then you have the tempo advantage. Next turn, hopefully you play another one and then they have to deal with it, right? So just generically good. Another generically good card is the Righteous Devil. This is a 4 play point 2 for Bane. It's pretty nice just to drop at any time. The 4 health is reasonably tanky, and it's not like it's posing much of a threat in terms of aggression, but people don't really want to attack with it because of the Bane. So what you can do is kind of play it, have it as a follower removal threat, but just swing face with it. Right? Force them to attack into here, or else they take 2 damage every turn. You can play it like that, or you can evo for, similar to Soul Dealer, the cost of 3 life, to give it Assail. Assail Bane. Whenever enemy follower is destroyed, deal 1 damage to its leader. Give your leader +1. I actually am not sure if you get the +1 if it trades 1v1. I'm not too sure. I should probably read the FAQ about that. But basically, you have to discard 3 opponent followers during your turn to get back the evo cost. However, you don't really care that the evo costs 3 because the evo cost doesn't use play points, and that can be really strong. To evo without play points, you can now play a 6 cost follower alongside it. So, just because of that fact, you don't really worry about the 1 health, and you don't really worry about the rush assail, although that can come in handy. Basically, it's just a very strong drop into another drop. That being said though, I would say in most cases Soul Dealer is more powerful, and I would say in most cases actually you don't evolve it. Like, you just slam it down as a 4 play point 2/4. If it stays around, you have the threat of evolving for free. However, you want to keep that threat active instead of, let's say, relieving the pressure by slamming the evo down. Next we have a couple of removal spells. Now these aren't the best, however, they're a little bit necessary. That being Execution. This deck does not have any way to remove amulets. So this is the only card you have to remove amulets. Quick Force, let the enemy card on the field destroy it. Basically, if you get to the late game and there's an infinite cost amulet on the field, you will lose. So you do need to have some sort of out. It is expensive, but hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. The other card is a Gloryfinder exclusive card. It's the first time I think we've seen it. Yeah, it's the first time I've shown it. Genesis of the Legend. Such a cool card, such an interesting card. It's a bit unfortunate that not that many decks can run it. However, how this goes is fanfare. Each player reveals up to 1 non-spell card from their hand simultaneously. Each player who revealed an X cost card summons it. X equals the second highest card. So there's a lot of mind games you can play with it, a lot of strategy, right? First, you need to decide, do I actually want to summon a card? Either a follower or an amulet. Do I want to summon it? Now, why do you ask this question? Don't you always want to summon it? Well, no. Let's say, for instance, you have a removal in your hand. This is a removal as well, but let's say you have a cheaper removal or a board wipe. What you can do is fanfare. Other players might play as if they want to summon a card, and let's say an opponent does win, they put down their follower, and then you board wipe them. So essentially it becomes a discard card. If you guys have ever played Hearthstone, it's a dirty rat. You could play it like a dirty rat. I'd say in general for this deck, you do want to try and summon something with it though. But I'd say 50-50. So depending on what your hand is, what the board state is, you could, for example, try to summon something, but then it doesn't work out. So you switch gears and then just board wipe instead. Overall, a really good card. The 2 play point quick removal is just a decent effect in and of itself. But yeah, it's a little bit confusing actually, so let's just go over how the game goes. If you want to summon your card, you probably want to reveal a 3, 4, or 5 cost follower. Those are the most likely to get summoned. I'd say 2 or 3. Because someone else might reveal a 4 or a 5 or a 6. And then if you don't want to summon, what you do is you reveal a very low cost card or like a 7 or 8 cost card. If you're doing that, you're not aiming for the second highest, the middle, therefore someone else will summon something instead. One thing to be wary of though, I only learned this recently as well, is that you can summon amulets, right? That's why we bring this along. Okay, moving on. 5 drops now. First one is just a generically good Necro Charge card. A payoff for Necro Charging. Odile, Black Swan, Necro Charge 20. This follower has Storm. Strike, deal 2 damage to each enemy leader and follower, so it's a board wipe. Pretty valuable in Abyss, which doesn't have that many board wipes. And I forgot the Fanfare, which is also deal 2 damage to each enemy leader and follower. So if you have 20 Necro Charge, it's 4 damage to everything, 6 Storm. Very powerful payoff. They 10 damage to face, very powerful payoff for Necro Charge 20. This is one of the cards that you should bring back if you don't really need Spawn of the Abyss, because let's be honest, you revive it 3 times, the players already have nothing in their hands anymore. So revive this instead. The Fanfare happens every time, the Necro Charge happens every time, the Storm happens every time. Also, God, she's so gorgeous, Odile. The what's the Havencraft one, the white one? I forgot her name. Something. But and I think this is the reverse holo version, I think, as well, of the gold. I'm pretty sure it is, but such a gorgeous card. Amazing. Fortunately, my camera is too bad, so you can't see it. Next 5 drop. Underworld Watchman Kawi, just a defensive tool, very nice. Ward, 5/5. Last word, select an enemy follower on the field, destroy it, give your leader +X, X equals the follower's attack. So same as Soul Dealer, except without the cost. You just play it down. It's a very strong swing turn. Just like how Kawi was in the digital. This is often, like, just this card alone can swing, I wouldn't say swing, can stabilize the game back in your favor if you're behind. So very important card to include. Next up, we talked about him before, it's the one and only Mordecai. Wow, again, such an iconic card, Mordecai, the Eternal. He never dies. 5 play point 5/5. Last words, give your leader -3, put this follower on your field. Now, as I said before, you don't always play this every game. It's decent as just a vanilla 5/5, sure, but a lot of the times you have better plays. What times do you play this? You play this card when you're pushing for the win. Because it's so hard to deal with, it's pretty much a guaranteed 5 attack next turn, assuming you pay the cost. One important thing to remember is that the cost is optional. Give your leader -3, it's only if you want to revive it that you pay 3 health. Again, 3 health when you start at 30 is only a 10th of your max pool, so it's a lot better than if you had started at 20. For that reason, Mordecai is a lot more viable. And another thing you can do is just trade. Right? You can, on your next turn, because it doesn't have rush or anything, trade it in and 3 health for a free 5/5. Good tempo. Else there's not too much to say about it. It's not as powerful as the digital version, I would say, because there is a cost to its revival. And so you revive it 2 or 3 times, it does start to add up. However, if your opponent can't deal with it, they can't deal with it. If you're playing a deck which goes like, big threat, remove your threat. Big threat, remove your threat. Big threat, remove your threat. This just counters it, because you can't remove it. So they play a big threat, you still have a 5/5 swing faced. They're as good as done. So yeah, it's fine. It's good. Again, it's one of those cards which isn't great, it's not game breaking, but in the right circumstances, it's pretty much like a checkmate, you could say. A checkmate over a few turns. Of course, if we're talking about Mordecai, we also need to talk about Dark Alice. Dark Alice is the same effect, except instead of paying 3 health, you banish the top 10 cards of your deck, and also discard a card. So, Dark Alice is actually just a straight upgrade, I would say, from Mordecai. It has Rush, so every time it comes back you can attack again. It also has Strike, each opponent discards a card, so this is a part of the discarded card package, however I decided to feature it here. And also, if you don't have a card in hand, you don't have to discard it, right? You can still activate it by banishing the top 10 cards. So basically, if Mordecai was a checkmate, Dark Alice is kind of... Oh man, that analogy did not go where I wanted to. Let's say Mordecai is a check, yeah? Mordecai is a check. Dark Alice is a checkmate. It's just for 1 play point extra. It's just better in every single way. So how can you use this? Well, like Mordecai, you can just play it down and the opponents cannot remove it. One other thing in Gloryfinder is you start with 50 cards in deck, whereas a lot of constructed decks you only have 40. You want to be as efficient as possible. So starting with 50, you can have like an extra turn, an extra revival. Basically, you can play it down, and then you can usually get away with reviving it 2 times. Right? You don't even need to rush it, you just play it down. They have to use a removal spell, banish 10, it comes back. They have to use another removal, banish 10, it comes back, and you still swing 6 next turn. And then let's say they remove it. You don't have to pay the banish 10. Right? You don't have to mill yourself completely. It's an optional effect. And the fact that you discard a card every turn is not so relevant. Now here's another way you could play it. You can play it just to discard everything from people's hands, right? There's Rush. You play it. You rush in. Strike, everyone discards a card. It runs into a high attack follower, gets destroyed. You pay 10, it comes back, rush into a high attack follower again, everyone discards, goes in the graveyard, you pay 10, and rush again. So essentially, in one turn, you've discarded 3 cards from each opponent's hands by paying the top 20 cards of your deck, which is a great deal. Of course, you also discard a card in your hand. You discard 2 when you revive it. But hey, you get everyone down to 0 cards, you are probably in the lead. Again, just another... what is it about Abysscraft and being obnoxious? You have discards, you have cards which revive itself, you have cards which... it's just constant annoyance. Alright, but moving on. Alucard, 7 play point 4/4, Storm. Fanfare Necrocharge 10, give us follower +2. So it's pretty much always a 6/4 Storm. With Strike, deal 4 damage to a follower and heal 4. Again, this just has everything you want. 6 play point Storm, you destroy a 4 health or less follower, and you heal 4. Right? Like, what more could you ask for? It is a bit expensive at 7, but for all the effects that it does, hey, I will happily pay 7. Next card is a Gloryfinder exclusive card. It is Person. So let's talk about this card for a little bit. Person is a 8 play point 6/6 with Bane. Now it does have an ability, cost 1, discard this card. Also, discard any number of cards of different classes and draw that many cards. So obviously, this card was designed with the current Gloryfinder rules in place, which is that you can include cards from any class. So the idea, right, is that you have a sword, a forest, a haven, and a Abysscraft card in your hand. You play this, you activate the effect, discard 4, draw 4. However, as we've said before, Gloryfinder with all classes in one deck sucks. So this effect is pretty much useless. Are you really going to pay 8 to discard an Abyss and possibly a neutral to draw 2? No way. So why do we play this card if the effect is so bad? Well, the Evolve is, for 1, reveal cards from the top of your deck until you reveal 2 followers, summon them, and then shuffle the rest on the bottom of your deck. Is this a good effect? No. Well, it's not bad, but you see, the deck runs a lot of low cost followers, right? There are some very nice high costs you want to pull, but again, most of the deck is like 3-4 cost and below. So you're not actually getting that much value. However, there are a lot of cards that you want to see at some point in the game. For example, hey, if you pull Held Undertaker of this, you're not too angry. So, you know, in a vacuum, it's a strong effect, but you have to build your deck around it to really take full advantage. However, I don't think that's optimal. Do you really want to fill your deck with 6, 7, 8 cost cards in order to make this a little bit more value? No. Does it kind of suck where you just pull out a 2-drop and a 3-drop from this effect? Kinda. But it's still a decent card. It has Bane, which is not so important, but hey, a 7/7 stat line is nothing to be sniffed at. Honestly, it's not a very synergistic card. We do run one card though, that you would quite like to pull, even though it's quite unlikely. And this is Israfil. So Israfil, a very staple in-game finisher card. Fanfare, heal 2, strike, deal 3 damage to each enemy follower. So it's a board clear and a big statted minion. And the evil one, it becomes a 10/10. Deal 5 damage to each enemy follower. So an even better board clear. For Israfil, it's like good. You can revive it. For instance, my thoughts on it are, it would be nice if we could replace this with something that's not an Evo, because again, sometimes you want to Evo one of the lower cost cards because they have effects like discard from opponents. So your 1 Evo per turn is actually quite valuable in this deck to do other effects. Because of that, the Evo one is a little bit of a downer. However, I would say the card is so powerful that it doesn't matter at all. Yeah, so that is actually the entire deck. The last cards we've got are 4 carrots. I should have 5 actually, because there's 15 evolve cards, so you can put 5 carrots in the deck. You don't need 5 carrots. You don't even need 4. I think, or you might run out of carrots if you keep reviving the Umamusume cards, but you probably will not be doing that. So yeah, 4 is enough, 5 is enough. What else are you going to put in the evolve deck anyway? Just fill it with carrots. Last but not least, we have the tokens. So, 2 Mimi, 2 Coco, just for Cerberus, and 5 ghosts. You won't really need 5, and honestly, you rarely need more than 3. Oh, we include 5 just in case. You know, there are a few occasions where you have more than 3 ghosts on board. Although, you know, you think about it, right? You play a ghost on board, if the other players are competent, you don't even need to have the token. You can just say, oh, I have a ghost and I'll hit for 1, because they're going to get banished at the end of the turn anyway. But just for clarity's sake, let's say. Cool. So that is the entire Abysscraft deck breakdown. The next video will be showcasing the deck. We'll do a few example games. Other than that, thanks for watching. If you watched the whole way through, you have any suggestions of cards to put in, do say so. Otherwise, I appreciate your time. Laters.